So for today's project, I have made a little leather pauldron for my son's costume because right now it's getting close to Halloween. Uh, this is a very imperfect, sloppy job of making a little leather pauldron. So if you're looking for a video that you take extra care, get all your lines right, this is not that video. I literally just threw this together today. So it's quick, dirty, messy, sloppy, but you can still make good work out of that. So what a pauldron is it just sits right here on the shoulder. You can find many other videos in which you can add all the different arm pieces. I'm not doing all that today, so if that's what you're looking for, this is not your video. I am simply just going to show and talk about building this thing right here. So let's do it. All right, so to get started, I have printed out a pauldron. There we go. A pattern. I will post this in the description below. But this pattern, I've scaled it to fit my son, which is this is what it's for. So I scaled it down to more of his size. However, I'm going to have to make some modifications to this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I scaled it. That's one modification to make it fit his arm, which of course is going to be smaller. The second thing is this style, and there's many of them, so you can find one that fits you better. When you cut it out, the idea is that these edges are going to stick together, right? And so because I'm doing this in leather and not EVA foam, those patterns still work the same. But if you notice, what happens is when you do this, when you do that little kind of edge, when you put that together, it's going to give you a certain angle. So if this is your shoulder here, this is the angle out. And if you're looking for that type of pauldron, that works perfectly well, okay? But I'm going to slightly modify mine because what I want it to do, I'm going to overlap this just a little bit like this. I want it to have more of that angle around or off the shoulder. So compare this angle, okay? You can see that this one's slanted down further versus if I let that out some more, that starts to flare out more. And so that's the nice thing with foam as well as leather is whenever you start changing, okay, when you start modifying this, it creates different angles, okay? The other thing about both foam and leather is that you can heat it up if you're doing foam and start shaping it. Same thing with leather. I can get it wet and then start shaping it and letting that dry. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get it to where I want in terms of my angle. Okay, I've got some little marks here. And what those marks are doing is it lets me know how far over I need to go. Okay, the second thing is now that I've got it where I want it, I'll grab some tape for this in a second, is if you notice these edges don't line up. So now I've got this kind of indentation where the pauldron's going to go on the shoulder. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alter this. I'm going to use a scrap sheet of paper. I'm going to kind of use this as my guide on that. So let me grab a piece of paper. Sorry. And so let's get some tape and tape this down, and then we'll go from there. All right, so with a little bit of tape, get that lined up where it needs to be. I'm just going to stick it right here. We'll be fine for now. All right, so now I want here on one side, that's about where I want it to, that curvature to come off. So let's hold that down. Make our lines. So all I'm doing is kind of retracing this pattern so that I can add to it. Okay, I'm not looking for perfection, but the nice thing about a lot of patterns is They're symmetrical, so use that to your advantage. Okay, so I marked it where I wanted it to go. Okay, put that back. Tick marks, make them all the time so you know exactly where it was at. So we line this back up, and bam. Okay, so all that I've done here is I've traced just this edge of this pattern when it's together, because that's how I want it to look. Okay, but I need it curved out. So for this one, all I'm going to do is simply take some type of straight edge. I'm going to draw between them. And then if I need to, what I can try to do is maybe give it a little bit of a roundedness to that. So nothing crazy. I can start here. If you're not comfortable with drawing stuff that's round, don't worry about it. What you can do is kind of pick a point here, draw a straight line. That's all you got to do. Okay? Draw a straight line, and then all you have to really round, because it's such a short angle, is just this little area right there. No problem. Okay? So now what we're going to do, we're going to cut this out around it, not the whole thing. Okay? All right, we're going to place this back together. Okay? Have everything lined up. This is how I want it to look. Okay? I'm going to stick this underneath it, just like so. Okay, because that's where I want it. Perfect. All right, so what I'm doing here is I've kind of created what it looks like in three-dimensional space with my pattern, okay, with paper. Then I'm going to cut it, okay? We're going to slice where it needs to be and then let the paper go flat, okay? It's kind of reverse. So if you look online, there's a lot of videos on how to make custom patterns. Most of that requires you to wrap the shape three-dimensionally and then start cutting those lines, okay? So we're going to keep following this. I can see my line on here, and we're just going to keep following that line. Okay, perfect. All right, so there's a midline here. All I need to do, my middle's marked, is cut directly towards that midline. Ta-da! Now I've got my new pattern. Looks a little different, right? Okay, so now what happens when I bring this together, it forms that shape. So what you want to do here, now that everything's secure, secure it more. Because if something falls off, it's going to suck. You can make tick lines if you want to, just to make sure everything's lined up. I just use tape. All right, that's your custom pattern. So now, put everything away so I have room here. Now we're going to cut this out on the leather, okay? Now, I'm going to do something a little different this go around. Normally in my leather, I do punches with my little awl. I'm going to drill holes this time. Okay, so here's something you might want to do. Fold this up, make sure you got everything lined up. And then where you want your holes. Okay, I'm actually going to trim this a little bit more right here at this edge. I want a little bit straighter line to the middle. There we go. Had a hanger. So, what I would recommend to make this lined up easy and simple, you start out where you want one of your holes, and then you want to run that line all the way to the end. Okay? You can use a ruler, you can use a tape measure, you can just use anything you want that would give you the same basic distance between that. Okay? So here, let's make it simple. Watch this. Take a piece of paper. I want you to judge about how far apart you want your holes. So let's say I do this one, okay? 2 little holes, dot, dot. Take a scrap piece of paper, whatever you want, a ruler if you got it, and simply mark the distance between those. And so now, you simply use that as your guide for where you want your holes to be. Done. So now, what I can do, I can simply put a hole in each side. Whenever I stitch that out, dot, 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 and everything will line up. All right, we're back with our pattern and our cut piece of leather. Got a couple tools here. Okay, so what I did was I cut my leather using my pattern. This is about a 9-ounce piece of leather, right around 3.5 millimeters. And so it's a nice thick piece. And so for kind of leather, you want those thicker pieces. It's going to hold its shape a lot better whenever I mold it. But this is the effect that we're going for once we get it together. So we're going to do in just a second. When we get those pieces together, we're going to get a really nice shape out of that. So I'm looking forward to that. So I can bend these down if I need to. You can flare them up or flare, however you want to do it. That's the nice thing about working with leather, as well as a lot of EVA foam. All right, so I'm going to clean up some of these edges as well. There's a few little miscuts that I made. Not a big deal. I like imperfection. Any of you that have watched my videos know I like that because it gives a little bit of a, makes it feel more authentic in my opinion. All right, so one of the things we want to do is we do want to punch out some holes. So if you want to use a hole punch for these, you can go right ahead and do so. This is not a paper punch. I'm mainly just doing this so I can score and see where my holes need to be on the other side. Because all I'm going to do is mark those. Okay. You can punch these if you have a hole punch. You can just push a nail through it. You just need something to mark both sides so that they're equal. I'm just using my leather punch because that's what I'm using the leather. All right, so now that it's marked on both sides, you can see, well, maybe you can see that it transferred. Okay, so now get all that lined up. Very good. Okay. Matter of fact, I'm just gonna put a little dot there, make it real easy. Okay, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, but your holes are punched. Now you have to do a stitch. Now, if you're here and you're gonna tell me, man, those holes look awful, they're not lined up or anything, you're right, they're not. I'm not too concerned with this because I'm going to have another piece over this actually. But if you're looking for more of a straight line, you can easily just take a pencil and draw a straight line along the edge, take a straight edge and run along. You can measure it. There's a lot of different ways to do that, okay? But for me, I'm just trying to get to this relatively quick. And so a little imperfection is not going to be a big deal. My holes are perfectly lined up, not straight as much along the edge. Again, not a big concern on this project, okay? So if you are, that's it for you. That's all you need. Stitch it up. You're good to go. You will, of course, need to attach something on here, however you want to attach it to your maybe your costume or whatnot. I'm going to look at that. We'll likely do some elastic underneath since this is just more of a prop that my son's going to wear for his costume. So a little bit of elastic attached underneath will work just fine for him. Okay. So I'm going to go clean this up. I'm going to stitch it. I've got some tooling I'm going to do, and I'll bring it back and show you where I've gone with this. All right, and there we have it. It's still a little damp, so some of the discoloration, but you could seal it from here if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave mine plain. The last little bit for this video is I'm just going to sew this together and just kind of shape it a little bit. As I said earlier, you're going to need this, need something to attach this to your shoulder. So there's more work you can do on it, but I'm making a real simple one. Like I said, I will likely just attach some elastic underneath and just stick it on the shoulder, since this is more of a costume piece than anything else. So what I'm going to use to sew this up, I simply have some artificial sinew here, and we're just going to do a very simple stitch. I don't remember the name of this stitch. And so if you have a stitching pony, of course that will help. But for this purpose, there's only a little bit to do. I'm not too worried about it. I will speed this up, make this a lot quicker. All right, there we have it. A very simple pauldron. Now, like I said, it's still a little damp. You can shape it kind of the way that you want. If you want it more flared out, squeeze it so it does that. Flatten this out a little bit for the shoulder, round it, whatever you want to do with it. Perfect. That will fit for his costume. I think he'll be very pleased with that. All right, everyone. Thanks again, and I will keep up and keep adding some more stuff on my leatherworking.